Today we are going to make some winter landscapes. We're going to do a little drawing and then we're going to do some watercolor painting after that. So go ahead and the first thing you want to do is put your name on the back of the paper and flip that bad boy over. And you want to have your paper the portrait way. So this is the tall way, so the short sides are the short side up at the top and the short side down facing toward me. Now we are going to draw a skyline, a horizon line, and this might be a little bit different than what we've done before. We usually just draw one line. Today we're going to actually draw two lines. So the first line, start on one side of your paper. You're going to make kind of a nice sledding hill about at the halfway point. Then you're going to kind of slope it down back to the edge of the paper over here. Then I'm going to come in from the other side, maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. I'm going to try a little bit higher on this one. And I'm going to slope it down until it comes into contact with my first line. So it's touching right there. Now we have our skyline. So down here is our land, down here is our sky. We need to add a little bit of something to it, so we're actually going to add a tree. Now the tree will be a deciduous tree. That means one that loses its leaves in the wintertime. Draw the trunk of my tree, draw some branches. Now this time of year, trees don't have leaves on them. That's what deciduous means, is that during the winter time they actually lose their leaves, although it is kind of getting close to spring, so we'll have some leaves and little buds growing on these trees in no time. Add another one right there. So I have my tree. Looks pretty tree-y. Maybe make this one a little bit longer. But I want to make it a little bit fancy. So you can choose to do this if you'd like. Draw some little circles at the end of each of your branches. Now this isn't what trees actually look like, but it adds a little bit of fun to this winter scene. So I'll quickly finish drawing my circles on there. And now the next thing we're going to do is take a Sharpie marker, any kind of permanent marker, and trace over this. You can use black. I'm going to use brown today on mine, but you can use black or brown, or probably gray would also work. Go ahead and trace over those lines. Be careful, try to trace as carefully as you can so that you get right on that line. And then trace your other lines. Trace my other hill. Oop, got off the line. Don't worry about it if you get off a little bit. We'll just come back and erase those a little bit later. And then my tree. So notice how my tree, it is on the land and then it goes up and it crosses my horizon line, so it's in the sky. So it's kind of like we're looking up at the tree. So there we go, got it traced. Now to me this looks a little bit funny because the bottom of my tree is super skinny, the bottom of my trunk. So I'm gonna add a little bit to my trunk, and it's so easy. I just start down here and I'm gonna make kind of a curved line and make it go closer and closer and closer to my trunk until it meets up with it. So I have a curved line on this side, and then I'm gonna add one on the other side. So curve the line, get closer and closer till it runs into my trunk. So this one ran into my trunk before this one. That's fine because trees are not exactly even. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and fill that in with my marker. Right there. So now I have my tree and I've got my horizon line. We're going to use a watercolor technique on this. We're going to use wet on wet. So what you do is get your paintbrush wet and we're going to paint the entire sky. And when you get down close to this horizon line, paint carefully beside it. Try not to paint over it because the watercolor is going to do a really cool thing once we put it on here. Make sure you're using plenty of water. If you're just using a little bit of water and painting this whole thing with one dip of water, you are going to need a little bit more. So go ahead and paint all of this right along the edge of that horizon line there. Now the nice thing about this marker is once we get to the tree, you can just paint over the tree. So I think I have everything wet. Now I'm going to choose some colors that I want to paint in this. We're going to kind of do some color mixing in here, just adding a little bit more water. And I have chosen 3 colors. I've chosen a blue violet, kind of a purple color, a blue, and then a magenta, super bright pink. So you can start with any color you like. I'm going to actually start with the purple color and just touch it to my paper. And wow, look at that. See, the paint actually runs and moves like this because the paper is already wet. So you can kind of move your brush around if you want and make some interesting shapes on your paper. If you leave your paint and without moving it, it's going to stay a little bit darker. It's going to stay more concentrated, but I'm going to spread it out a little bit. I'm going to move on to another color. I'm going to move on to my blue right here. So I'm going to put some blue up in this corner. So it's kind of running off to the corner of my paper there because it was wrinkly, but make sure you paint all the way to the edge of that paper. Now the trick is, since we only put our water up to this horizon line, the paint isn't going to cross over this line unless we do it accidentally by painting our brush over that line. But it's going to kind of stay within the water. The water is kind of like a fence a little bit for this watercolor paint to keep it from going all over the place. It kind of keeps it contained.
So I'm adding some blue in here. Gets a little bit lighter over here maybe. That's fine. If you want to have it lighter, that's okay. If you want to have it darker, that is also okay. Just make sure it gets all the way down to that horizon line and all the way over to the edges here. So I'm going to go ahead and add my last color. My last color had some beautiful bright pink. Add that in there. Wow, that looks so nice. So just wherever I need to fill that in. So I still have a few spaces left. I could choose to add the magenta, this bright pink in, or I could go back to my other colors. If I just didn't really like what it was looking like, I can choose to add a little bit of blue in there, a little bit more purple. But I really like how this is turning out. These colors go together so well. Kind of a nice wintry sky. So there you go. Now, once you have this done, you can choose to leave it at this stage, or I like to grab a little bit more water and just kind of mix it up a little bit more, because sometimes those edges get kind of strong. That means it's a really distinct line. You can see it really well. So I want my colors to mix together just a little bit more than what I see them doing right now. I want them to really blend together. And I see up here is kind of a lighter spot. So I'm going to drag some of these darker colors just right up into this section.
So now that we're kind of getting close to the end, one more technique that you can choose to use if you want, I really love, and this helps us make some clouds. So I just take this paper towel right here, just a regular old paper towel, and I just crumple it up. So I'm crumpling it and making it super wrinkly. Now, once I have it super wrinkly, I'm gonna leave it. So see how there's still kind of, like there's some spots that are lower and some spots that are a little bit higher, and I'm gonna gently touch it to my paper. So really lightly touch it to my paper. And it's gonna take up some of that paint and actually make it look like clouds. So if you see a spot like right here, I kind of want it to be a little bit lighter, then I can put my paper towel on there a couple of extra times to kind of make some clouds. And these clouds look so great in a little wintry sky here. And maybe right up here a little bit more. I'm gonna take a little bit more off. So there you have it. I would pick this up, but it's still pretty wet right here. So just go ahead and leave that to dry, and there you have it, a nice winter landscape. Don't have to paint the bottom because it is already white. The paper is already white. Good luck, and I can't wait to see your creations.